I saw my husband holding another woman's hand outside his office at 8:43 on a Thursday night. His text was still glowing on my phone. "I'm working late, don't wait up." He was not working. He was standing under the soft yellow lights by the parking garage, smiling at a woman in a cream coat, like she had just handed him the future. Their fingers were linked, not casually, not by accident, like they had practiced it. I took one step forward. Then a voice behind me whispered, "Don't do that, it's exactly what he wants." I stopped so suddenly my heel scraped the pavement. The woman behind me was in her late 60s, maybe older, silver hair, navy cardigan, a canvas tote tucked under one arm. She looked like someone's Sunday school teacher or the woman who remembered every name at the church potluck. She did not look like someone who belonged in the middle of my marriage. But her hand closed gently around my wrist. Not tight. Just enough to hold me in place. Across the lot, my husband opened the passenger door for the woman in the cream coat. My husband. David. The man who forgot to bring the trash bins in but remembered every quarterly earnings call. The man who kissed my forehead every morning, distracted and brief like checking a box. The man who still wore the watch I bought him when he made regional manager. He leaned down and said something to her. She laughed. A small laugh. Private. The kind I used to hear in our kitchen years ago when the girls were little and the mortgage scared us, and we still made grilled cheese at midnight because the money had to stretch. My chest tightened. The older woman beside me said, "If you walk over there now, he gets to tell the story first." I turned to her. "What story?" She looked at David's car. "The one where you are unstable." That was the first moment I understood that what I had seen might not be the whole thing. And somehow that was worse. Earlier that evening, I had been at home in Maple Ridge, standing barefoot in our kitchen with a dish towel over my shoulder. The house was quiet in the way houses get after children move out, but leave their shadows behind. Our oldest Megan lived 3 hours away with her husband and 2 children. Our younger daughter Emily was finishing nursing school and called mostly when she needed help with car insurance or anatomy flashcards. I didn't mind. Motherhood had trained me to love from a distance. On the stove, a pot of chicken soup simmered. David had been complaining about his stomach all week. Too much coffee, too many late meetings, too many dinners with people who used the word leverage without blinking. I had chopped celery the way he liked it. Small pieces. He hated big chunks, though he never said hate. David preferred softer words, inefficient, distracting, unnecessary. At 6:12 my phone buzzed. "Working late, don't wait up. Big client issue." I stood there with the wooden spoon in my hand. For almost 30 years I had known the rhythm of his messages. When he was truly stressed, he wrote full sentences. When he was annoyed, he used periods. When he was lying, he became polite. This message had 3 clean sentences. No tipo. No complaint. No detail he did not need to include. Big client issue. That was when I knew. Not everything. Just enough. I wiped my hands and called him. He didn't answer. I waited 6 minutes. Then I called the office line. The night receptionist, a young man named Tyler, picked up on the 3rd ring. "Mercer and Cole, this is Tyler." "Hi Tyler, this is Laura Bennett, David Bennett's wife. Is he still upstairs?" There was a pause. Not long, but long enough for truth to pass through it. "Mr. Bennett stepped out about 10 minutes ago." "Oh," I said. Tyler cleared his throat. "Do you want me to leave him a message?" "No, thank you." I hung up and stood in the kitchen while the soup bubbled behind me. Then I turned off the burner. I did not change clothes. I did not freshen my makeup. I did not perform dignity for a man who was about to lose the right to measure mine. I slipped on my coat, picked up my keys, and drove toward his office. The road from our subdivision to downtown Willow Creek took 18 minutes without traffic. I had driven it hundreds of times. Company Christmas parties, retirement dinners, award luncheons where wives stood beside men who thanked the family while looking at the board chairman. I used to be proud of those nights. David in a dark suit. Me in a modest dress, his hand resting lightly against my back. Not possessive. Presentational. That was the word I did not have then. Presentational. At red lights I watched families in SUVs. A father reaching back to hand fries to a child. A woman rubbing her forehead in the passenger seat. A teenager staring into blue phone light. Ordinary lives moving through ordinary intersections. Mine felt suddenly staged. When I pulled into the office complex, I parked near the back under a maple tree that had dropped leaves across the asphalt. His building was still lit on the 4th floor. His corner office window glowed. For 1 second I felt foolish. Maybe he had stepped out for coffee. Maybe Tyler was mistaken. Maybe my marriage was not the kind of marriage where a wife drove across town holding proof only in her stomach. Then the glass doors opened. David walked out first. He was wearing the gray overcoat I had picked up from the dry cleaner that morning. The woman followed. She was younger than me, but not young, early 40s maybe, polished in a way that cost money and time, smooth hair, simple earrings, a leather portfolio under her arm. She did not look nervous. That was what struck me. A woman sneaking out with someone's husband usually looks around. This woman did not. She walked beside him as if she belonged in the frame. Then he reached for her hand. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. I heard myself breathe. Once. Twice. Then I got out of the car. The air was cool, the kind of late October cold that slides under your collar and reminds you winter is not asking permission. They crossed toward the parking garage. I followed at a distance. Not hiding exactly. Not ready to be seen. Near the entrance he paused. She said something. He smiled down at her, soft and controlled. Then he lifted their joined hands and kissed her knuckles. That was the moment that took me apart. Not the hand. Not the lie. The tenderness. Because tenderness is where a marriage stores its history. It is not in anniversary dinners or framed photos. It is in who gets the softer voice after a long day. And he had given mine away in a parking lot. I stepped forward. My body moved before my mind agreed. Then the older woman caught my wrist. "Don't do that," she whispered. "It's exactly what he wants." I stared at her. "Who are you?" She kept her eyes on David. Someone who learned too late what men like him do when they need a witness. David closed the car door. He walked around to the driver's side. Before he got in, he looked across the lot. Not at me. At the space near me. As if he expected something to happen there. As if he had left a mark on the ground and waited for me to step into it. The older woman let go of my wrist. "Go home, Mrs. Bennett," she said. I had not told her my name. My mouth went dry. "How do you know who I am?" For the first time she looked directly at me. Her eyes were tired, kind, and terribly certain. "Because last week she said your husband asked me to testify against you." David's car pulled away from the curb. The taillight slipped into traffic. I stood under the parking lot lights with a stranger beside me, my soup cooling at home, my phone silent in my coat pocket, and my marriage changing shape before I could name what it had become. I did not chase him. I did not call him. I drove home with both hands on the wheel and the radio off. When I walked into the kitchen, the house smelled like celery and chicken broth, and everything I had mistaken for safety. On the counter beside the mail sat an envelope from David's office. I had not noticed it before. My name was typed on the front. Not Laura. Not Honey. Not Mrs. Bennett. Laura E. Bennett. Formal. Clean. Prepared. I stood there for a long moment. Then I opened it. Inside was a document I had never seen. And at the bottom of the first page in blue ink was a signature that looked almost exactly like mine. I did not call him. I read the document twice at the kitchen counter, standing where I had been cutting celery an hour earlier. The soup had cooled. A thin film had formed across the top like something settling after a storm. The header read Separation Agreement Preliminary Draft. My name appeared on the first line. His name on the second. The date field was blank. At the bottom of the page there was a signature that looked like mine. Not perfect, but close enough to pass in a room where people wanted it to pass. I set the paper down and pressed my palm flat against it. The ink did not smear. It was not fresh. I folded the document along the existing crease as if I were helping it remember its shape. Then I put it back in the envelope. I didn't answer my phone when it buzzed at 9:12. "David?" I watched it ring. I didn't answer. At 9:18 it rang again. I turned it face down. The house was quiet in a way that felt newly constructed, not empty, arranged. I rinsed the soup pot and set it in the sink. Small movements. I wiped the counter. I put the envelope on the table and sat down across from it. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I thought about the woman in the parking lot. Silver hair, navy cardigan. Someone who learned too late, she had said. I pictured David asking her to testify. Not about an affair. About me. The thought settled into place with a kind of logic I didn't want to admit I recognized. David liked clean narratives. He liked rooms where outcomes were decided before anyone spoke. He liked people who could be positioned. I had spent years believing I was beside him. It occurred to me sitting there with a document I hadn't signed that I might have been part of the arrangement. At 9:31 my phone buzzed again. A text this time. Are you up? I'll be late. Don't wait. I looked at the message. Then I typed. I won't. I set the phone down and stood up. I went to the front window and turned off the porch light. Then I went upstairs. In the bedroom I opened my dresser and took out a small velvet box from the back corner. Inside was my wedding ring. I had taken it off months ago when my knuckles started to ache in the winter. I had meant to get it resized. I had not. I held it between my fingers. It felt lighter than I remembered. I put it on. It slid into place with a faint resistance. I left it there. I slept without dreaming. In the morning I made coffee the way I always did. 2 scoops, filter folded cleanly, pot rinsed. The ordinary things felt important. At 7:04 David walked into the kitchen. He wore the gray overcoat. The same one from the night before. He set his keys down in the same bowl he always used. He looked at me. Morning. Morning. He moved to the coffee maker. Rough night, he said. I didn't answer. He poured coffee and leaned against the counter. Client issue, he added as if the first sentence needed support. I nodded once. He watched me for a second longer than usual. You sleep okay? Yes. He sipped his coffee. Sorry I missed dinner. It's fine. He set the mug down. You didn't eat, did you? I had something. He looked at the sink. The pot was clean. The counter was clear. He nodded. Good. There was a pause. Not uncomfortable. Measured. He picked up his phone and checked it. Then he looked at me again. You have anything today? Errands. Okay. He hesitated. Then he said we should talk later, about some paperwork. There it was. He did not look away when he said it. I felt something shift. Not in him. In me. Okay, I said. He nodded as if a step had been completed. Tonight, he added. Tonight is fine. He picked up his keys. I'll try to be home earlier. I didn't answer. He waited. I didn't fill the space. He left. The door closed with the same quiet click it always made. I stood in the kitchen with my coffee cooling in my hand. Then I set it down and went upstairs. In the closet, I pulled out a small tote bag. I put the envelope inside. Then I added a folder with our tax returns. 3 years. Joint accounts. Retirement statements. I had kept copies, not because I expected to need them, because I had always believed in keeping things organized. I zipped the bag and carried it downstairs. At 8:12 I left the house. I did not go to the grocery store. I drove downtown. The law office was on Main Street above a real estate agency and next to a bakery that smelled like cinnamon and yeast. I had passed it 100 times. I had never gone in. The sign read Harlan and Pierce Family Law. I parked across the street and sat in the car for a minute. People walked by with paper cups and briefcases. A woman in scrubs checked her phone. A man in a suit argued quietly into a headset. Ordinary lives. I got out of the car. Inside the office was quiet and beige. A receptionist looked up. Good morning. Good morning. How can I help you? My name is Laura Bennett. I'd like to speak with someone about a document. She nodded and handed me a clipboard. Fill this out, please. I sat down and wrote my name. Address. Phone number. Reason for visit. I paused. Then I wrote review of separation agreement. The pen did not shake. After a few minutes, a woman in her 50s opened a door and called my name. Mrs. Bennett. I stood and followed her into a small office with a desk and 2 chairs. I'm Karen Pierce, she said. What can I help you with? I handed her the envelope. She opened it and slid the document out. Her eyes moved across the page. She did not speak. She turned to the last page. She looked at the signature. Then she looked up at me. "Did you sign this?" "No." She nodded once. "Do you know who prepared it?" "My husband's firm." She set the paper down. "Has he asked you to sign anything recently?" "Not yet." She leaned back in her chair. "All right." She folded her hands. "We're going to slow this down." I felt my shoulders drop a fraction. "Okay." She tapped the page lightly. "This is a draft, but it's written as if it has already been agreed to." "Yes." And this signature, she paused, it would not hold up if challenged, but it could create confusion. "Confusion," I repeated. She nodded. "In certain situations, confusion benefits one side." I thought of David in the parking lot. Waiting. Positioned. I sat very still. Karen looked at me. "Tell me what happened." I told her. "Not everything. Just the facts. The text. The office. The parking lot. The woman. The whisper." Karen listened without interrupting. When I finished, she wrote a few notes. Then she said, "We're going to document everything from here on." "Okay." "No reactions in writing, no verbal agreements, no signatures?" I nodded. She looked at me again. "Do you feel safe at home?" I considered the question. "Yes." "Do you feel pressured?" I thought of his tone at breakfast. Measured. Expected. "Yes," I said. She wrote that down. "Good," she said quietly. "Pressure is information." I almost smiled. Almost. We spoke for another 30 minutes. Steps. Options. Timing. Nothing dramatic. Everything precise. When I left the office, the sun was higher. The bakery next door had a line out the door. I stood on the sidewalk and breathed in the smell of cinnamon. Then I walked to my car. I did not start the engine right away. I looked at my phone. There was a new message. Unknown number. I opened it. "You came this morning. Good. Don't tell him yet. He's moving faster than you think." No name. No signature. I stared at the screen. Then I typed, "Who is this?" The reply came almost immediately. "Someone who already made his mistake." I set the phone down on the passenger seat. My reflection looked back at me from the windshield. For the first time since the night before, I recognized the woman looking back. Not because she was calm. Because she had stopped waiting to be told what was happening. I started the car. As I pulled into traffic, one thought settled into place with a quiet certainty. David did not just expect me to react. He had built something that depended on it. And now, I wasn't going to give it to him. By noon, I understood that silence could be louder than an accusation. David texted at 12:17. "Can we talk tonight?" I was parked outside the credit union with a folder on my lap, and Karen Pierce's words in my head. No reactions in writing. No verbal agreements. No signatures. I typed back one sentence. Yes. Then I put the phone in my purse and went inside. The woman at the desk recognized me. Her name was Carla. She had helped us refinance the house 15 years earlier when the girls still fought over the bathroom, and David kept saying we were finally getting ahead. "Laura Bennett," she said, smiling. "It's been a while." "It has." She looked toward the folder. "What can I do for you?" "I need copies of joint account statements." Her smile softened into professionalism. "How far back?" 3 years. She paused for only a breath. Then she nodded. "Of course." That tiny pause told me more than a question would have. Women know these pauses. At church offices. At doctors' desks. At banks. At places where private pain must be translated into paperwork. Carla did not ask if everything was all right. She only said, "Let me get you a coffee while this prints." I almost said no. Then I said thank you. While the machine hummed behind her desk, I watched an older couple sit side by side near the loan officer's door. The husband held a folded brochure. The wife held the strap of her purse with both hands. They did not speak. After 30 years of marriage, quiet can mean peace. Or it can mean surrender. I wondered which one people saw when they looked at David and me. Carla returned with the coffee and a stack of statements. She slid them into a large envelope. Do you need anything else? I looked at the envelope. Yes, I said. Are there any recent changes to our retirement accounts connected through this bank? Carla's expression stayed neutral. I can't advise you here, but I can print what's visible. I'd appreciate that. She typed. A printer clicked. Another sheet came out. She looked at it, then back at me. There was a beneficiary update request initiated last week. My hand tightened around the coffee cup. Completed. Pending. By whom? She looked at the screen. David Bennett. I nodded. My face did not move. Inside, something old and trusting folded in on itself. Can I have a copy? She printed it. At the bottom of the form, my name had been moved from primary beneficiary to contingent. The primary beneficiary field was blank. Pending. Waiting. Like a chair pulled out for someone else. I thanked Carla and left. Outside, I sat in the car and let the papers rest on the passenger seat. The fall sun made the windshield warm. For a moment, I thought about calling Megan. Then I pictured her kitchen. 2 kids, laundry, her husband on rotating shifts, a life already stretched thin. I could hear what she would say. Mom, are you okay? And I did not yet know how to answer without becoming a burden. So I called Emily instead. She answered on the 4th ring, breathless. Mom, I'm between classes. I know, I just wanted to hear your voice. There was a pause. That pause belonged to daughters. The one where they measure a mother's tone against every childhood memory. Are you okay? I'm fine. Mom? I smiled a little, though she could not see it. I'm handling something. What kind of something? Adult something. That is not comforting. I know. Behind her, I heard voices and a door closing. Is it Dad? I looked at the retirement form. Yes. Emily went quiet. Not surprised. That hurt more than I expected. What do you know, I asked? She exhaled. Nothing, not really. Emily. He came by campus last week. I closed my eyes. Why? He said he was worried about you. My throat tightened. What did he say? He said you'd seemed emotional, isolated, that maybe I should check in more. I looked through the windshield at a man loading groceries into a truck. How did he say it? Like he was being kind. Of course he did. David never sharpened a knife in public. He handed it to you by the handle and let everyone admire his manners. What did you say? I said you sounded normal to me. A small, unexpected warmth moved through my chest. Thank you. But Mom, what is going on? I wanted to tell her everything. The parking lot. The woman. The forged signature. The pending beneficiary change. Instead, I said, your father may be preparing people to misunderstand me. Emily did not speak. Then she said softly, that sounds like him. I did not cry, but I gripped the steering wheel hard enough to feel the seam in the leather. I don't want you in the middle, I said. I'm already in the family. That sentence landed with the blunt honesty of a 24-year-old who had learned too much from watching. I'll tell you more when I can, I said. Okay. And Emily? Yeah. Don't react to him. She breathed out once. Got it. After we hung up, I sat there for another minute. My daughter had learned restraint from me. I didn't know whether to be proud or sorry. At 3 o'clock, I drove past David's office again. Not into the lot. Past it. A slow pass through the right lane, my sunglasses on both hands loose on the wheel. The building looked ordinary in daylight. Glass doors. Trimmed hedges. A flag near the entrance. People came and went carrying laptop bags and paper cups. Nothing about it suggested betrayal. That was the cruelty of respectable places. They made damage look scheduled. As I passed, I saw the woman in the cream coat standing near the entrance with 2 men in suits. She was laughing politely, not flirtatious, not careless. Professional. Confident. A Blacktown car idled at the curb. David came out behind her. He did not touch her this time. But he stood slightly behind her left shoulder, close enough to belong in her orbit. Not a lover. Not exactly. More like a man presenting himself beside power. I pulled into a parking space across the street near a dry cleaner and watched through my side mirror. The woman shook hands with one of the men. David smiled. The smile was familiar. I had seen it at board dinners, at school fundraisers, at church when the pastor asked him to help with the building committee. It was the smile he wore when he wanted to be seen as necessary. The woman turned toward him. He nodded. She said something. He listened with the stillness he used when important people spoke. And suddenly the parking lot from the night before changed shape in my mind. Her hand in his tenderness, the kiss to her knuckles. It had hurt because it looked intimate. But now in daylight I saw another possibility. It was performative. A gesture aimed at someone. Maybe me. Maybe someone watching. Maybe both. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. You're seeing it now. I stared at the message. Then another appeared. He doesn't love her. He needs what she represents. I looked back across the street. Cream coat? Town car. Men in suits. David angled toward status like a plant toward light. I typed slowly. Who is she? The reply came after a full minute. Marianne Cole, founding partner's niece. Recently divorced, recently promoted, very useful. I read it twice. Cole. Mercer and Cole. The name was on every holiday card David's firm sent. Every branded pen. Every retirement dinner program. I looked at Marianne again. She was not hiding. She did not need to. David had not stepped out of our marriage into passion. He had stepped toward a door he thought she could open. My stomach turned. Not from jealousy this time. From recognition. Because I had seen him do this before in smaller ways. Choosing seats near donors at charity dinners. Laughing longer at the pastor's jokes when the pastor's brother worked at the hospital board. Forgetting old friends when they stopped being useful. I had called it ambition. Then loyalty. Then stress. Names wives give things before we are ready to call them what they are. A knock sounded on my passenger window. I startled. The older woman from the parking lot stood beside my car. Navy cardigan again. Canvas tote. She held up one hand polite. I unlocked the door. She got in carefully as if entering a pew. For a moment neither of us spoke. Across the street, David opened the town car door for Marianne. The older woman watched him. My name is Ruth Calder, she said. I looked at her. You worked with him. For 12 years. At the firm. She nodded. Administrative director, retired last spring. Retired. Her mouth moved into something that was not a smile. That was the word they used. I waited. She looked down at her hands. I made him look better than he was for a long time. There was no bitterness in her voice. Only fatigue. He learned how people saw me, she continued. Reliable, old-fashioned, harmless. Then he used it. For what? To confirm things, quietly, with authority. I thought of her warning. Your husband asked me to testify against you. What did he ask you to say about me? Ruth looked at me then. That you were unpredictable. That you had been showing up at the office. That you misunderstood professional relationships. I swallowed. I hadn't shown up before last night. I know. Across the street, the town car pulled away. David stayed on the curb looking after it. For 1 second, his face dropped. Not sadness. Calculation. Then his phone rang. He answered and the mask returned. Ruth saw me watching. He is not trying to leave you because he fell in love, she said. I kept my eyes on David. He is trying to leave clean. The word clean slid between us. Clean meant no mess. No guilt. No story where he looked cruel. No wife withstanding. No daughters asking the wrong questions. No church friends whispering that David Bennett had traded 30 years of marriage for a better table. He needs me to look unstable, I said. Ruth nodded. He needs people to believe you broke before he left. I felt something inside me go very still. Not cold. Clear. For years I had measured myself by how well I adapted to David's rooms. His office parties. His church committees. His careful introductions. This is my wife Laura. Not proud. Not ashamed. Just placed. Now I understood. He had never needed me to disappear. He needed me to become the reason he could. Ruth reached into her tote and handed me a small envelope. What's this? Copies. Of what? Emails, meeting notes, enough to show the pattern. I did not take it right away. She held it between us. I should have said something sooner. I looked at her face. The lines around her mouth. The tired kindness in her eyes. Why didn't you? She lowered the envelope slightly. Because women my age were taught that keeping quiet was the same as being decent. The sentence sat in the car like a confession older than both of us. I took the envelope. Across the street, David turned suddenly. For one breath, I thought he saw us. But his eyes moved past my car, searching for something else. Or someone. Ruth whispered, "He's looking for your reaction." I watched him stand there in his expensive overcoat surrounded by glass and concrete, and the life he had been building just out of my reach. For the first time, I did not feel replaced. I felt studied, and that made everything more dangerous. The first real break did not happen in a parking lot. It happened at my own dining table under the light fixture David had once insisted was too expensive, then later claimed had been his idea. He came home at 6:41. I heard the garage door rise, the engine cut, the careful pause before he entered the house. That pause had always been there. I used to think he was gathering himself before coming home. Now I wondered if he was choosing which version of himself to bring inside. I was sitting at the dining table with a glass of water, a notepad, and no papers in sight. The envelope from Ruth was upstairs tucked behind winter sweaters. The bank statements were in my car. Karen Pierce's card was inside my coat pocket. I had left the table almost empty on purpose. David noticed. His eyes moved across the surface, then to my face. "Hey," he said. "Hey." He took off his coat and draped it over the back of a chair. Not hung up. Draped. A small claim over the room? "Long day," he said. "I'm sure." He looked at me for a second. Then he smiled. Not warmly. Reasonably. I thought we could talk. I nodded. He sat across from me. That mattered. David usually sat at the head of the table, even when it was just the two of us, even when the girls teased him about it. Dad's throne, Emily used to say. Tonight he chose the chair across from me. A softer staging. Equal distance. A man preparing to look fair. He folded his hands. I know things have felt tense. I watched his thumbs touch. Then separate. Then touch again. Have they? He gave a quiet laugh. Laura. Just my name. A mild warning. I had heard that tone in doctors' offices, school meetings, church hallways. The tone men use when they are about to make a woman's calm sound like resistance. I'm listening, I said. He leaned back. I've been worried about you. There it was. Not us. Not the marriage. Me. I took a sip of water. What worries you? You seem distant. I've been thinking. That's what I mean. I set the glass down. His eyes followed my hand. You're not sleeping well, he said. You're pulling away from people. The girls have noticed. No, I said. He blinked. A tiny interruption in his rhythm. Number. The girls have not noticed that. You told Emily to notice it. His mouth tightened. Only slightly. I spoke with our daughter because I was concerned. You spoke with her because you wanted a witness. The word changed the temperature in the room. Witness. He sat very still. For a moment the house made itself known around us. The refrigerator humming. A car passing outside. The soft tick of the wall clock near the pantry. David looked down at his folded hands. Then he looked back up. I don't know who you've been talking to. Does that matter? It matters if someone is filling your head with ideas. I almost smiled. That was the old move. Make the woman's mind sound like an open room anyone could walk into. No one filled my head, I said. You left enough out for me to see. He sighed. Not with guilt. With inconvenience. I didn't want to do this tonight. Do what? He reached into the inside pocket of his suit jacket and pulled out a folder. Cream paper? Blue tab. My stomach tightened, but I kept my face still. He placed it on the table between us. I think we need to discuss a trial separation. I looked at the folder. Then at him. Trial. Yes. He nodded, encouraged by his own gentleness. Nothing final, just space, time to breathe. From what? His jaw moved. From the tension. The tension, I repeated. He leaned forward. I'm trying to handle this respectfully. That word. Respectfully. David loved words that made his intentions wear church clothes. I folded my hands in my lap. Is Marianne Cole part of this respectful process? He did not move. But his eyes changed. Not shock. Assessment. So he had expected me to know. Or hoped I would. She is a colleague, he said. She is the founding partner's niece. She is also a colleague. And recently divorced. His expression hardened. Laura, be careful. I tilted my head. With what? With making accusations you can't take back. I let silence sit between us. He had expected anger. I could feel it. He had set the table for it. The folder, the concern, the calm voice, the word separation softened into trial. All of it waiting for me to raise my voice. I did not. Did you hold her hand last night because she is your colleague? He looked away. Just once. It was enough. When he looked back, the husband was gone. Not completely, but enough to let me see the man underneath. You were there, he said. A statement. Not a question. Yes. His face settled. You followed me. I came to your office after you lied. You followed me, he repeated firmer. There it was. The door he had built. I could walk through it and become the wife who followed him. The wife who watched. The wife who misunderstood. I stayed seated. I saw what you wanted me to see. Something flickered in his face. Annoyance. Then caution. He pushed the folder a little closer. I'm not going to argue with you. Good. I think you should read this. I already read one version. That stopped him. His hand remained on the folder. What does that mean? It means an envelope arrived yesterday. He did not ask which envelope. That told me enough. His face became blank in the way windows become blank at night. You opened private legal correspondence. It had my name on it. That was a draft. With my signature on it. He inhaled slowly. For the first time, his control had to work. That was an internal placeholder. I looked at him. My forged signature was a placeholder. His eyes sharpened. Don't use words you don't understand. The sentence landed hard. Not because it was loud. Because it was familiar. So many years of correction in one soft blow. I saw myself at 32 sitting beside him at a dinner with his boss mispronouncing a client's name. At 41 asking if we could delay a retirement contribution because Megan needed braces. At 54 suggesting we host Thanksgiving at our house and watching him smile like I had proposed something charming but inefficient. Don't use words you don't understand. There it was. The marriage compressed into one sentence. I stood up. He looked relieved. He thought the scene had finally begun. But I only walked to the kitchen, picked up my phone from the counter and returned. I placed it face up on the table. Say that again. He stared at the phone. The red recording light was not on. I had not started anything. I didn't need to. The sight of possibility changed him. His voice lowered. Laura. No, I said, say it again. He sat back. I'm trying to protect you. From what? From making this harder than it has to be. I nodded slowly. Harder for whom? His mouth opened. Closed. A tiny thing. But I had lived with him long enough to know when a man had lost the next line. The rupture came quietly. No shouting. No slammed door. Just David Bennett sitting at our dining table realizing I was no longer standing where he had placed me. He looked at the folder. Then at my ring. You put it back on. I glanced down. Yes. Why? I turned the ring once around my finger. Because I needed to remember what you were trying to rewrite. His face changed again. Not guilt. Something colder. You think you're going to win something. I looked at him for a long time. There was the word he had hidden under all the soft ones. Win. Marriage had become a room with sides. I think I said I'm going to stop helping you make me disappear. He stood then. The chair scraped the floor. Not loud. Still enough to mark the moment. I won't be spoken to like this in my own house. Our house, I said. He laughed once. Small. Ugly. Then he caught himself. He picked up the folder and tapped it against the table to straighten the edges. That little movement nearly broke me. Even here, he needed the paper aligned. "I'll stay at the downtown condo tonight," he said. I did not know about a downtown condo. He saw that I didn't. For the first time all evening, something like satisfaction passed through his eyes. Not because of the condo. Because he had found a place where he still knew more than I did. "All right," I said. That was not the reaction he wanted. He waited. I gave him nothing else. He put on his coat. At the doorway he turned back. "You should be careful who you trust." I stood beside the dining table. "So should you." He left. The garage door rose. The car backed out. Then the house settled again. I remained standing until the sound faded. Only then did I pick up the glass of water. My hand shook once. I let it. Then I walked upstairs and took Ruth's envelope from the closet. Inside were printed emails, meeting notes, calendar invites. One message had David's name at the top. The subject line read, "Narrative Preparation LB." I sat on the edge of the bed. The page trembled in my hand. Not because I was afraid. Because I was finally reading the script he had written for me. And on the second page, I found my daughter's names. The cruelest thing in Ruth's envelope was not my name. It was my daughter's names placed neatly inside a paragraph like they were supporting evidence. Megan reports concerns about her mother's increasing isolation. Megan had reported no such thing. Emily has observed emotional volatility during recent calls. Emily had observed nothing except a mother choosing her words carefully. I sat on the edge of my bed with the printed email in my hands and felt a quiet anger move through me. Not hot. Not dramatic. Something steadier. The kind that does not need a witness. David had not only prepared people to misunderstand me. He had reached into motherhood and tried to rearrange it into testimony. That was the part I could not forgive easily. Not because he lied. Because he assumed love could be summarized by whoever spoke first. I read the email again. It had been sent from David to a senior partner at the firm, copied to someone in human resources, and blind copied to Ruth. Ruth had circled the blind copy line in pencil. A small note in the margin read, "He forgot I still received admin copies." I almost laughed. It came out as one breath. Then I saw another printed page. A meeting agenda. Transition planning, personal stability concern. David had attended. Marianne Cole had attended. 2 names I did not know had attended. The final bullet point said, "If necessary, establish pattern of emotional escalation." I looked up from the paper. The bedroom was exactly the same. The quilt folded at the foot of the bed. David's cufflinks on the dresser tray. A framed photo from Megan's college graduation. My life had not changed shape in the room. Only in my understanding of it. I picked up my phone and called Karen Pierce. She answered on the second ring. "Laura, I found something." Her voice shifted. Not alarmed. "Ready." "Tell me." I read her the subject line. Then the bullet point. There was a pause. "Do not send me pictures from your phone," she said. "Okay." "Bring the originals tomorrow. Keep them flat. Don't write on them. Don't discuss them with David." "I won't." "And Laura." "Yes." "Do not call your daughters while upset." I closed my eyes. That was my next thought. I know Karen said, that is why I said it. After we hung up, I sat there for a while. Then I stood. I went downstairs and made tea. Not because I wanted it. Because my mother had always made tea when bad news entered a house. She had called it giving the body something warm to hold. My mother had been gone 8 years. But that night in my kitchen, I understood her more clearly than I ever had. She had spent 36 years married to a man who corrected her in public and depended on her in private. My father was not cruel. That was what people always said. He's not cruel. He provides. He doesn't drink. He shows up for church. As if cruelty had to announce itself loudly to be real. David was not loud either. He was organized. He was thoughtful when watched. He remembered birthdays. He wrote thank you notes. He complimented women's casseroles at church and carried folding chairs without being asked. People trusted men like that. Women like me helped them earn it. I carried my tea into the living room and sat without turning on the television. The house made small sounds. The refrigerator clicked. The heat kicked on. Somewhere outside, a dog barked twice and stopped. At 9:46, my phone lit up. Megan. I let it ring once before answering. Hi, honey. Mom. Her voice had that careful brightness adults use when they are scared of what they might hear. Hi. Dad called me. Of course he had. I set the tea down. What did he say? He said you two had a difficult conversation. I'm sure he did. He said you may call me upset. I looked toward the dark window. My reflection sat pale in the glass. Did he ask you to document it? Megan went silent. There are silences that deny. This one answered. Oh, Mom, she said. Not shocked. Sad. That sadness found a place under my ribs. I need to tell you something, I said, and I need you not to react to him yet. Okay. Your father is trying to create a record that I am unstable. She inhaled sharply. He used your name in writing. What? He implied you had concerns about my isolation. I never said that. I know. He can't do that. He already did. Megan's voice changed. The mother in her came forward. The little girl disappeared. What do you need from me? The question almost undid me. Not because I had no answer. Because for years I had been the one asking it. At the pediatrician. At school conferences. At midnight when fevers rose. What do you need from me? Now my daughter offered it back. I need you to stay calm if he calls again, I said. Do not argue. Do not defend me emotionally. Just write down what he says afterward. Megan was quiet. Then she said, so we are documenting him. Yes. The word tasted strange. Not revengeful. Necessary. Does Emily know? Part of it. I'll call her. No, I said. Too quickly. Megan heard it. Mom, I don't want this to become a family war. It became one when he used our names. I looked at the framed photo on the mantel. David in a suit. Me in a navy dress. Megan holding her diploma. Emily standing beside us with braces and sunburned cheeks. We looked happy. Maybe we were. Or maybe a photograph only proves that everyone stood still at the same time. Megan, I said quietly, I don't want you to hate your father. She breathed out. I don't think you get to manage that for us anymore. That sentence hurt. But it was clean. I had spent motherhood protecting the girls from adult disappointment, softening David's absences, translating his corrections into stress, turning his emotional distance into work pressure. Your dad loves you. He's just tired. He didn't mean it that way. Maybe he had loved them. Maybe that was not the question. Maybe the question was how often I had taught them to excuse being handled carelessly. I'm sorry, I said. Megan's voice softened. For what? For making him easier to understand than he was. She did not answer right away. Then she said, I think we all did that. After we hung up, I did not cry. I had expected to. Instead, I walked upstairs and opened David's side of the closet. His shoes were lined in pairs. Work shoes. Weekend shoes. Running shoes he had worn twice. On the top shelf sat a box of old family videos labeled in my handwriting. Birthdays. Christmas. Beach trip. Megan's recital. I pulled the box down and sat on the bedroom floor. I did not play them. I just touched the labels. There had been tenderness. There had been real mornings. There had been laughter in kitchens and sleeping toddlers against shoulders and bills paid late but paid. I would not let David rewrite all of it as failure. I would not let my anger do that either. That was the hardest part. To see the damage without pretending the whole life had been a lie. At 11:03, another message arrived from the unknown number. Ruth. He will expect you to break tomorrow. Don't. I typed back. Why tomorrow? The reply came slowly. Church board dinner. He's bringing her. I stared at the screen. For a moment, the room tilted. The church board dinner was Saturday. David and I had attended for 15 years. It was not just dinner. It was seating charts, donors, spouses, reputation. It was where people became respectable in front of witnesses. And he was bringing Marianne. Not hidden. Displayed. The pattern became clear. First, he made me look fragile. Then he made himself look patient. Then he appeared in public beside someone polished, powerful, newly useful. And if I reacted, the story would finish itself. I stood and walked to the mirror above the dresser. My face looked older than it had that morning, but not smaller. I turned my wedding ring once. Then I took it off. Not in anger. Not as performance. I placed it in the velvet box and closed the lid. For years that ring had meant I belonged somewhere. That night I understood something quieter. Belonging should not require disappearing. I opened my closet and chose a simple black dress for the dinner. Not too formal. Not too soft. Then I texted Ruth. "I'm going." She replied almost immediately. "Then don't go as his wife." I looked at the words for a long time. Then another message appeared. "Go as yourself." I set the phone down. Downstairs the house was still. For the first time since I had seen David in the parking lot, I felt the shape of my next choice. Not confrontation. Not collapse. Presence. And somehow, that felt more dangerous to him than anything I could say. The church board dinner was not a place for truth. It was a place for polished shoes, soft lighting, and people who called power service when it sat beside them at a round table. I arrived alone at 6:28. The event was held in the banquet room of the Willow Creek Country Club, though everyone pretended it was not a country club kind of event. The invitation called it a community stewardship dinner. There were white tablecloths, name cards, floral centerpieces low enough for conversation. A pianist near the fireplace played hymns with the edges softened. I stood in the entryway for one breath. Not long enough to look uncertain. Just long enough to remember who I was before the room tried to tell me. I wore the black dress. Small pearl earrings. Low heels. No wedding ring. The absence felt visible to me, though no one else noticed at first. Women greeted me first. That was how these rooms worked. Men shook hands near the bar. Women gathered near doorways and coat racks, measuring the weather inside each other's faces. Laura Diane Whitaker said, touching my arm, "You look lovely." "Thank you." Her eyes dipped to my hand. Then back to my face. Only once. Diane had been married 42 years to a retired orthodontist who never remembered her birthday without help. She hosted Bible study every other Wednesday and carried other women's secrets like folded napkins in her purse. "David here yet?" she asked. "Not that I've seen." The answer was simple. Clean. It did not invite rescue. Diane nodded. "Well, come sit with us." I looked toward the dining room. My name card would be beside David's. For 15 years, that was where I belonged. Beside him. Slightly angled. Supportive. Available for small talk when he moved toward better conversations. Tonight I smiled. "I may walk around first?" Diane squeezed my arm. "Of course." I stepped into the room. People looked up. Not dramatically. Just enough. A woman arriving alone to a couple's dinner causes a soft disturbance, not because anyone is rude, because everyone understands marriage as a seating arrangement. I saw Ruth near the far wall. Navy cardigan again. A simple gray skirt. She was speaking with an older man I recognized from the church finance committee. When she saw me, she did not wave. She only lifted her chin slightly. A signal. Steady. I moved toward the refreshment table and poured water into a glass. My hand did not shake. That felt like a victory too small to announce. At 6:41, David arrived. I knew before I turned around. Rooms change when certain men enter them, not because they are important, because they believe they are. Conversations shifted. A few men called his name. Someone laughed too loudly. I turned. David stood at the doorway in a navy suit, polished and composed. Marianne Cole stood beside him. Cream coat over one arm. Dark green dress. No wedding ring. She looked beautiful in the controlled way of a woman who had learned that public life punishes wrinkles in fabric before it punishes cruelty. David placed his hand lightly at the small of her back. Not intimate enough to scandalize. Not innocent enough to ignore. A room can go quiet without becoming silent. That was what happened. A thinning. A soft intake. A dozen women doing math at once. David saw me. His expression did not change. But his hand dropped for Marianne's back. Only a little. Enough for me to know he had not expected me to stand where I stood. Not crying. Not flushed. Not leaving. Just present. Marianne followed his gaze. Her eyes met mine. For a moment I saw something there. Not triumph. Not shame. Recognition. As if she had heard my name many times and was now meeting the person attached to it. David crossed the room. "Laura," he said. "David." His smile held. "I didn't know you were coming. It was on our calendar." He glanced toward Marianne. "This is a professional dinner." "No," I said gently. "It's a church board dinner." The correction landed softly enough that only he felt it. His jaw tightened. Marianne stepped forward. "Mrs. Bennett," she said, "I'm Marianne Cole." Her voice was low. "Well trained." "Laura," I said. I shook her hand. Her fingers were cool. Her grip was careful. She looked at my bare hand, then quickly away. "It's nice to meet you," she said. I held her gaze. "I imagine it is useful." A faint color moved into her face. David leaned in. "Laura." There was the warning again. Smaller this time. Less certain. I took a sip of water. "I'm going to find my seat." I walked away before he could place me. That was the first real act of independence I had performed in that room. Not a speech. Not an accusation. A change in direction. At table 8, my name card sat beside David's. His name was on the other side. Marianne had no card. Of course she didn't. He had planned to appear with her but not seat her officially. Visible enough to suggest change. Informal enough to deny intention. A careful man's half-step. I picked up my name card and moved it. Across the table. Next to Diane. Diane saw me do it. She said nothing. But she moved her water glass 6 inches to make room. Women have whole languages made of small adjustments. Dinner began with a prayer. Pastor Glenn thanked everyone for faithful service, generous hearts, and marriages that modeled commitment for younger generations. His eyes passed over me. Then David. Then Marianne seated at a nearby table after an awkward rearrangement. I bowed my head. I did not pray for my marriage. I prayed not to become cruel. That was harder. During salad, David tried to catch my eye. I let my attention rest on Diane's story about her grandson's science fair project. During the main course, a board member asked David about the expansion campaign. David answered beautifully. He always did. He spoke about stewardship, legacy, and responsibility to the next generation. I watched the room admire him. And for the first time, admiration did not confuse me. It could be earned in one room and empty in another. Both could be true. That was the difficulty. Halfway through dessert, Marianne approached my table. She held a coffee cup with both hands. "May I speak with you?" Diane looked down at her plate. I set my fork beside my cake. "Here." Marianne glanced toward David. He was speaking with Pastor Glenn near the windows. Somewhere quieter. I stood. Not because she asked. Because I wanted to know what kind of woman agreed to be displayed in another woman's life. We walked into the hallway near the coat room. The music from inside became softer. Marianne faced me. Up close she looked tired. Not in her makeup. Behind it. "I owe you an apology," she said. I waited. She seemed surprised by my silence. I did not understand the situation at first. "That is a careful sentence." She nodded once. "It is." Her eyes dropped to the floor. "David told me your marriage had been over privately for years." I almost smiled. Privately over. A phrase men use when they want permission before they have earned honesty. "He told me you were fragile," she continued. "That public confrontation would hurt you, that he was trying to protect you. And you believed him." Her face tightened. I believed the version that benefited me. That answer was so honest I had no reply ready. She looked toward the dining room. "My aunt is retiring from active leadership at the firm. David wants her seat on the client strategy committee." "There it is." "Yes." She swallowed. "He thought being seen with me would signal support from my family. And holding your hand in the parking lot." Her eyes closed briefly. I asked him not to. That shifted something. Not forgiveness. Attention. "He said you might appear," she said. He said if you did, it would confirm concerns about your behavior. I looked at the coat room door. So Ruth had been right. He did not want passion witnessed. He wanted my reaction witnessed. Marianne set her coffee cup on a small table. I am not innocent, she said. I liked being important to someone ambitious. I liked that he listened. The bitterness in her voice was aimed at herself. Status can feel like affection when you're lonely. I thought of David kissing her knuckles. The tenderness that had hollowed me out. It had not belonged to her either. That was the strangest mercy. We had both been used differently by the same performance. What do you want from me? I asked. She looked back at me. Nothing. I did not believe her. Then she said, actually, that's not true. I want to stop being part of this before I become the woman he says I am. For the first time that night, I felt something besides anger. A tired recognition. Generations of women had been taught to compete over men who were staging themselves through us. Wife. Colleague. Daughter. Widow. Useful woman. Difficult woman. Respectable woman. Replaceable woman. I looked at Marianne. Then stop. She nodded. I will. Behind us, footsteps approached. David appeared at the end of the hallway. He saw us standing together. His face altered. Not much, but enough. The room he had designed had produced a conversation he did not control. Everything all right? He asked. Marianne picked up her coffee. No, she said quietly, but it will be. She walked past him into the dining room. David looked at me. For once, he did not know which voice to use. Concerned husband. Patient man. Injured professional. None fit. I stepped closer. Not threatening. Not pleading. Just close enough that he had to hear me without the room. You wanted me to embarrass myself tonight. He looked toward the dining room. Keep your voice down. I am. That stopped him. I smiled then. Small? Sad. You needed me to become the story. His eyes hardened. You're making this very difficult. No, I said, I'm making it visible. He stared at me. For the first time in days, I saw fear. Not fear of losing me. Fear of losing the version of himself that depended on my silence. I returned to the dining room. Diane moved her purse from my chair. Ruth across the room gave no sign at all. But as I sat, I noticed my name card. Someone had turned it upright again. Laura Bennett. Not Mrs. David Bennett. Not unstable. Not difficult. Not useful. Just my name. And for that one quiet moment, it felt like enough. The next morning, the house felt the same. That was the surprising part. The cabinets were where they had always been. The light over the sink flickered once before settling. The coffee maker clicked into place like it had memorized my hands. Ordinary things stayed loyal. I stood at the counter and watched the water heat. For years I had believed resolution would come with noise. A slammed door. A final speech. A line drawn in the kind of language people repeat to each other later. It did not. It arrived quietly like a decision that had been forming long before I noticed it. At 8:06 my phone buzzed. David. I let it ring once. Then I answered. Hello? There was a pause on the line. Laura. His voice was softer than usual. Not rehearsed. Not public. I wanted to check in. I'm fine. I heard you were at the dinner. I was. Another pause. I didn't expect that. I know. He exhaled. I think we need to talk in person. We've been talking. You know what I mean. I leaned against the counter. The kettle began to hum. Where are you? I asked. At the condo. There it was again. The place I had not known existed. I'll be there at 10, I said. He hesitated. That's fine. We hung up. I poured hot water over a tea bag and let it steep. I did not rush. There was nothing to catch anymore. At 9:42, I parked outside the downtown building he had mentioned. It was newer than ours. Glass. Clean lines. A small lobby with a security desk and a potted plant that looked too perfect to be alive. I signed in with the guard. Unit. 14B. He nodded. Elevator to your left. The hallway on the 14th floor smelled faintly of paint and something citrus. David opened the door before I knocked. He was wearing a white shirt sleeves, rolled no tie. The version of him that suggested honesty. "Come in," he said. I stepped inside. The apartment was staged. Not decorated. Neutral furniture. No photos. No books that had been read twice. A place meant to be shown, not lived in. He closed the door. We stood in the middle of the room. No table between us. No audience. "Do you want coffee?" he asked. "No." He nodded. "I'll keep this simple." "Please do." He walked to the window, then turned back. "I handled things badly." That was as close to an apology as he could come. "I agree." He accepted that. "I didn't intend to hurt you. You intended to manage me." He looked down. Then back up. "I was trying to transition without damage." "Damage to what?" "My career, my reputation, our standing." "Our standing." I let the words sit. "And me?" I asked. He frowned slightly. "I assumed you would adapt." There it was again. The belief that I would adjust to whatever shape he needed. "I did," I said, "for years." He moved closer. "I thought we were both ready." "For what?" "For something different." I nodded once. "I wasn't asked." He opened his mouth. Closed it. The kettle in my mind had stopped. Everything felt clear. "I saw the documents," I said. He stiffened. "They were drafts. They included my daughter's names." He looked away. "That was a mistake." "No," I said. "It was a method." He did not argue. That told me more than any explanation. "I won't fight you publicly," I continued. "I won't create a scene. I won't give you the version of me you prepared for." He watched me carefully. "What does that mean?" "It means we do this properly." "Define properly." "With counsel, with facts, with time." He exhaled. Relief flickered across his face. "Of course." "A quiet separation. A reasonable wife. No spectacle. No damage." "You're being very fair," he said. I met his eyes. "I'm being precise." He nodded. "That's good." There was a moment then. A small one. Where the old pattern could have returned. Where he could have stepped closer, lowered his voice, reached for my hand, and said something that sounded like regret. He did not. And I realized he no longer knew how. "I'll have my attorney contact yours," I said. He blinked. "You all ready?" "Yes." He smiled faintly. "Of course you did." "Not admiration. Recognition." "I underestimated you," he said. I tilted my head. "No, you measured me accurately. I just stopped agreeing." He almost laughed. Almost. We stood there in the apartment that did not belong to either of us. "I don't want this to become ugly," he said. "It won't." "And the girls? They'll decide who you are to them." "That's not what I meant." "I know." He looked toward the window again. "I'm not a bad man, Laura." I considered him. The man who paid bills on time. Who coached Little League for 2 seasons before work got in the way. Who remembered to call his mother every Sunday. Who wrote emails about my instability while kissing another woman's hand in a parking lot. "I don't need to label you," I said. "I just need to stop explaining you." That was the closest thing to a verdict I would give. He nodded slowly. "I suppose that's fair." Fair. The word settled differently now. Not a compromise. A boundary. I walked to the door. He followed. "Laura." I turned. "If you ever need anything?" I raised my hand slightly. Not to stop him. To end the sentence. "I won't." He accepted that. He opened the door. I stepped into the hallway. The citrus smell was still there. Clean. Temporary. As the door closed behind me, I felt something lift. Not joy. Not relief. Space. The kind that lets you stand without adjusting to someone else's frame. That afternoon I met Megan and Emily at a small diner halfway between their homes and mine. Red booths. Coffee that never stopped coming. A waitress who called everyone hun. We sat across from each other. My daughters. Grown women. Megan reached for my hand. Emily watched my face. "Are you okay?" Megan asked. "I am." Emily leaned forward. "What happens now?" "We move forward," I said. "With him." with ourselves. They exchanged a look. Sisters have their own language, too. Do you hate him? Emily asked. I thought about the apartment. The documents. The years. No, I said, I see him. Megan squeezed my hand. That sounds worse. It's clearer. We talked for a long time. Not about evidence. Not about strategy. About holidays. About where we would gather next year. About what traditions we wanted to keep and which ones we would let go. At one point, Emily laughed. A real laugh. And for a moment, the room felt like a place we had chosen, not inherited. When we stood to leave, Megan hugged me first. Then Emily. Tight. Grounding. In the parking lot, Emily said, Mom. Yes. I'm proud of you. I looked at her. You don't have to be. I know, she said. That's why I am. That evening I returned home. The house was quiet again. But it did not feel arranged anymore. It felt mine. I walked through each room slowly. Not inspecting. Not reclaiming. Just noticing. The chair by the window. The photo on the mantel. The kitchen where I had stood so many nights measuring my life against someone else's expectations. I did not remove anything. I did not change the locks. I did not perform independence. I lived it quietly. At 8:03, I sat at the dining table and wrote a short message. Not to David. To myself. One line. I folded it and placed it in the velvet ring box. Then I closed the lid. If you are listening to this and you have ever felt yourself shrinking to fit someone else's version of you, I want you to know something. You do not need a dramatic moment to change. You need a clear one. A moment where you see the pattern and choose not to step into it again. That choice will not look heroic. It will look calm. It will look like a woman sitting at her own table saying very little and meaning every word. And over time that will restore something you may not have realized you lost. Not the relationship. Not the past. Your dignity. Take your time. Notice the small things. Listen to the pauses. Trust the quiet decisions. They are often the ones that last.